Hello, this is Rich. Welcome to part 3 on continuing to making our flow graph node. We left off setting up the listening event for our entity event mine place, but we will never receive this event because it is never sent ever. It's a new custom event. So we're going to have to do that. Now, we remember we actually spawn a mine when we left click on the player input. Let's go to that class again. Let's go ahead and revisit it. So go to game, after files, player input. Let's go ahead to the class selector here, see player input, and then the method selector, and we went to on action. Beautiful. There we go. This is where we spawn our entity. Now, we never actually did catch our entity that was spawned. So let's go ahead and do that now. Entity pent equals. Now we need to send a new event. So, very simple. Get the global environment here. Make sure you grab the P entity system. When you have the entity system, just go to send event to all. It takes one parameter, an S entity event struct. So let's go ahead and create that. S entity event, ent event. Beautiful. Ent event dot. See, we have a float array that holds 2 floats and a int array that holds 4 ints. These are, you can pass anything into these values. That's why it's very important. They're not very descriptive here. So adding our description onto our entity event enum allows us to kind of understand what these parameters mean in runtime here. So the entity event we want to send equals entity event mine placed, and the end param, the first value, is going to be the entity, the mine. Remember, the mine that was placed. But since this is an integer, let's go ahead and pass the entity ID, so that way we can grab the entity later on. Beautiful. Then we go ahead and pass the ent event struct in there. Every single entity will get this event. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and do some cleanup here. We're going to make sure our entity, our mine, in other words, is actually spawned before we send an event. Otherwise, we'll get an error here on a null pointer when we try to get the entity's ID. So we're going to make sure it exists first. If it does, go ahead and send the event. Beautiful. Go back to our node class here. And now what do? Now we need to actually create our ports. Like how many ports? We're going to have some input ports and output ports. And then when we receive this entity event, okay, that our entity has placed a mine, then we can go ahead and activate our output ports and send out the entity ID of the mine that was placed. But in reality here, we don't need to look for all of these events. Let's go ahead and get rid of all that. And just do a simple if statement. If event.event equals entity event mine placed, then do whatever. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed. And in the next tutorial, we'll actually go ahead and talk about how to fill in the actual needed overloaded functions for nodes. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy. See you in the next part.